How many superstars are in the NBA, John?
Yeah, John, you tell us. How many superstars in the NBA?
So when I look at superstars, I think a cream of the crop all NBA players. And I always believe that there should be a tier and a frame of reference reserved for the players who have the case of being the best player in the world. Now, last week on Pick a Side, I was on Sunday night, and we are just chopping up shop, having a little bit of fun, horsing around a little bit. And then Dells asked a question. I told him, Jason Tatum, NBA champion, 5-time All-NBA player, is not a superstar. And in my mind, I don't think it's that strong of an opinion because Tatum, to me, is the 5th best player in the world. But I don't view him in the same crop of the top 4. Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, yes, Luka, and Shea. And at that moment in time, I realized that, and I will do a little bit of reflecting here. If there's a better frame, because I don't view JT in that top 4, if there's a better frame of reference to categorize that group, maybe you guys know one. But to me, that is the tier that I call superstars, the cream of the crop All-NBA players. A guy who, and you guys asked what my criteria was, and I think that's most important because I left out everybody else in the top 10. Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Victor, AD, the whole 9 yards. To me, a superstar in that group of players is a guy that almost no matter what you put around him, when they're out there on the floor, you're going to play at a 50-win pace, and they can win you a playoff series, even if you're going to throw some replacement-level starters next to them. And I felt like in that moment, to me, a superstar may only be reserved for 4 guys. But I could also see the opinion where people think the entire top 10 maybe is what a superstar should be classified as in the same time.
So let me ask you a question, because if that is your criteria, how is SGA on it?
Because he's having one of the 3 best guard seasons of the last 25 years.
But your criteria can't, like, that's why I feel like your superstar thing is too strict. Because if it's, can carry a team to 50 wins, I think that's fair. Win you a playoff series, they should have to be able to do it or shown that they've done it. Yeah. That's why I think you have Giannis in there, even though he's missed the last couple playoffs.
Yeah, there's some injuries, unfortunately.
And obviously the Joker.
Like, I think if Luka versus the Clippers getting them right there, or him getting to 48 wins with anyone, Dwight Powell, Reggie Bullock.
I think everybody that you mentioned has hit every point in your criteria except SGA. But
really?
I think, because he hasn't, to be fair to SGA, he's only played 2 playoff series. So he really hasn't, it's not because.
Last year's 2, he's played 4.
Yeah, it's not because, I'm saying 2 as the guy. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not because he can't do it. He just hasn't had the opportunity to do it, is more of what I'm saying. So That's why I think it should be, if you have a criteria, in my opinion, is like 3 to 4 things to hit. I think you should really only be able to hit 2 or 3 to be able to be in that tier. Like, you can even have 2 separate tiers, because I think if you're the 5th best player in a league of like 200 plus players, you're not an all-star. You know what I'm saying? Like, all-star, I think, is subjective to
Tatum to me is obviously championship number 1. And so that would be it for me, an elite franchise player and a tier 1 championship player.
I think there has to be multiple routes to getting to the same destination. I think, number 1, I think there's a slight distinction between superstar and megastar, because when I think megastar, I think about the icon aspect. So, like, if we're just doing megastars, I think Steph, LeBron, and KD are the only megastars because they're icons. Superstar, I think that criteria can go a lot of ways. I do think if you're a best player on a championship team, you're a superstar. I think if you are a top 10-ish player and you're marketable, you're a superstar. I think if you're a top 10 player and you're not marketable and you haven't been the best player on a championship team, I don't think you're a superstar. But so, like, I think the marketing aspect has to have an impact, but you don't need to be marketable to be a superstar. For example, I don't think Jokic is like that marketable, right? No. In terms of compared to Steph or LeBron, but he's so freaking good, and he was the best player on a championship team, and he's an MVP. He's a superstar. I think Shea simply is playing like a superstar, and he's on the rise in terms of marketability. So, I think there's multiple ways to be a superstar, but I probably think there's, 6 to 8 superstars. And then I think megastar is when you kind of collide all of them together. Like if you're a superstar and you're an icon and you're a champion, I think that's like the most exclusive tier. I don't even think superstar is the final destination. So that's how I see it.
I like that answer. I don't think you're wrong. I just think you're a little too strict. That's all. Just a little too strict with the superstar.
I know I am.
It's a little bit. And the 4 guys you have are firm. Like they're all 4 superstars to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tatum's a superstar. I think like
Wemby's
a superstar. I think Steph and Kevin Durant, LeBron, they're still superstars.
I like Mega.
Yeah, I think Mega's valid too, like because they're the icons of the league and stuff like that. And they're like Steph and LeBron are still the most marketable players in the league. So, you're always going to have that effect. But yeah, number 1 on the championship team is tough because I'm sure like a lot of guys can be, but like how many guys can be when the situation isn't too perfect, when the situation can break down and stuff like that. And like Wilder mentioned, everybody has a different path to the end goal, to the same end goal. So that path to superstar, SGA's path is a lot different than Luka's path. Luka's path is different than Giannis's path. Giannis's path is different than Tatum. So it's really just it's a tough end, but the league is so talented. I think you got it because there can't be 4 superstars and 30 all-stars because it's probably like 30 to 35 players.
That's the best counterpoint. Because it's like, how are you going to classify the 5th to 35th best players in the NBA as all lumped into the same tier, which I don't. I believe, like, once again, like James said, there's 2 tiers and 2 brackets. Like the first tier, if you want to call it a megastar and say that, okay, this is semantics we're getting into at this point. It's a matter of language and what you determine and define something as. If you want to define the top 4 as something above superstar, right? And then 5 to 8 or 9 is superstar. I don't mind that. And I think that's where a lot of people listen. They're like, well, now you're contradicting yourself. My idea is that Tatum is among a group of 4 to 5 players in which he is the one that has shown I have won a championship as the best player on my team. Granted, when you look at that supporting cast, it is pretty much perfect. I mean, Horford and Porzingis together when Porzingis is healthy is a cheat code, and they have Derek White, Drew Holiday, Payne Pritchard off the bench. I mean, it's insane. But with that in mind, I believe he's the top end of that second tier, which is 5 to 10 with Brunson and Ant-Man. So it's a conversation we always come back to every couple of years, oftentimes based on whether we're trying to determine who the best player in the world is. And right now, it still feels like it's Jokic because of the run that he had and how consistent he's been in the regular season. But to me, I don't believe it's a matter of the semantics as much as it is. I believe Tatum is not in that same top 4, which is where this whole debate started last week. That being said, what Tatum needs to get there is an efficient playoff run. Last year in that Mavericks series, when I look at him in the finals versus the Warriors, those 2 matchups where it wasn't the Pacers defense and he's shooting below 40% from the field and he's doing everything else to be an impactful player. That is where I saw him in 2023. I'm like, he's on the path. I saw him in those recent playoff runs, and I said, he's a slight bit below. If he has an efficient finals the way he didn't last year, I'm fine putting him in that group. I think he deserved it at that point. But to me, it comes down to the scoring efficiency and consistency. And the shooting of the three-point shooting in the playoffs is what gives me a slight reservation putting him in that top 4.
Do you think that in terms of labeling players superstars or not superstars, do you think it has to be like a strict bubble of where you rank in the league? For example, could the 6th best player in the league be a superstar and the 5th best player not be?
Nah, that's a dynamic question.
It's a weird question, but does it have to be like players 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 are superstars and players 7 to 9 are not? Or could the 7th best player be a superstar and the 4th best not be? You know where I'm getting at, right?
I'm like a tier 1, tier 2 guy. So like tier 1 guys are guys that have shown me that they could be a number 1 on a championship team where I've won it. And then the tier 2 guys are guys that I know have the ability to do it. So it's like, it's just really a mixed up top 10 list. But like I can't say the 8th best player in the world is not a superstar. He's an all-star along with the 28th best player in the world. It's kind of like, nah, brother, they're not even close to the same tier.
I think there's a lot of tiers. And some of them are factors outside of basketball. Because, like I said, I think the icons are megastars. It's almost like it doesn't matter what they do now. They're just going to be bigger than what you do on the floor right now, right? Sort of like, today we have all these musicians. We have like Adam Levine, but they're not Elvis, and Elvis isn't making music anymore, but he's a megastar, right? So there's a lot of ways to categorize it. For me, superstar, megastar, for me, marketing is really important. I think your name presence really matters as much as what you do on the floor.